Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. The curse of government employees. No matter how bad they are, getting rid of them is all but impossible. Gary sound like an oxygen thief that no one like. Glad you gave him what for good, OP. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Well, if I'm not there at 9, why don't you break in and start without me? A few years ago in rural Australia, there was a small, empty government office building and Gary, a government department manager. The building had been vacant for about 8 months while committee after committee tried to decide what they were going to do with it. Gary was the manager of the infrastructure department, which was responsible for the upkeep and any modifications to the building. Gary was not an efficient manager. One of his favorite sayings was, "Flick me an email," which was strange because outwardly he didn't seem to ever read them. He also had this knack of never being on time for an appointment. Not many construction industry people I spoke with seemed to take joy in dealing directly with Gary. Where we could, we'd go through everyone else in the department to get stuff done, so Gary became known as Speed Bump, something to be avoided if you could. Now, because I'm an electrical contractor who wears a few different hats, has been to a number of different rodeos over the years, and is afflicted with the curse of competency, I got roped into assisting Speed Bump with this building's future use. He asked me for a 9 a.m. meeting at his office one day to discuss the building. Arriving at the outer reception 10 minutes early, I asked Jen, the receptionist, to let him know I was there. Jen comes back to me and says, "Gary's running late." He said to wait for him. About 30 minutes later, I asked Jen to remind him I was waiting. After a couple of phone calls, Jen says, "I can't get through to him in his office or on mobile." His office thinks he's left the building. No one knows where he is. I guess a reasonable person would have just called it quits and left at this point, or called him, or emailed him, or left a message with Jen or something. But I was sick of Gary's crap. I'd learned ages ago that one way to help people with their timekeeping skills was through their wallet. So I went out to my work vehicle, got my laptop and a bottle of water, then went back into the reception area and set up camp in a corner. I'd planned an office day anyway to work on quotations and project planning so Gary could pay me to do it. My charge-out rate at the time was $110 an hour. 7.5 hours of very productive, spite-fueled work later, I called Gary on his mobile, got message bank, and left a message saying I waited for him and maybe we should reschedule. The next meeting was arranged for 2 days later, on site at the empty building at 9 a.m. During the phone call to arrange this, I lightly mocked Speed Bump by asking if he meant 9 a.m. human time or Gary time. He may have thought we'd built some kind of convivial rapport and was just being funny when he said, "Well, if I'm not there at 9, why don't you break in and start without me?" I was on site 10 minutes early and waited until 9:05 to put the battery in my angle grinder. The stainless steel security mesh over the window made a satisfying sound being cut. After duct taping the whole window, the hammer tapping the glass edges was less satisfying. The best sound that day after gaining entry was the security system siren. I was outside having a smoke with the security response guard when Gary turned up. The wind kinda left his complainy sails when I shrugged and said, "Well, you did say." I'd like to close this tale by saying that Gary learned from my interactions with him. But as you probably know, speed bumps don't change. You either have to just go around them, deal with them, or remove them, and Gary just continued being a speed bump for some time to come. I didn't cop any serious crap over the 7.5 hour invoice or the damage. However, Gary did delegate one of his staff to work directly with me a lot more after this. It was a small win, but you have to savor those, I reckon. And our second story. Your wish is my command, boss. I used to work at a bakery for a lady who I'm still friends with, although she used to occasionally become unreasonable and yell at her employees. You know that employee at your job who works super hard and isn't really recognized for it or paid well enough? You know, the sort of person who would rather do a task to get it done right, even if it's someone else's job? Well, that person at the bakery was me. I was the open supervisor, which just meant that I had to keep everyone on track until my boss got there at 6 or 7 a.m., and my coworker who was with me in the early mornings was not super good at her job, to say the least. This resulted in me doing all of my work and roughly 30% of her work. I had told my boss this, but she had not addressed my coworker yet, and one busy day we were slammed. I mean, we usually made 2 or 3 dozen cinnamon rolls a day, but this day we made 24 and sold them all. As a result, we were behind with several tasks. Despite our best efforts, when my boss came in, she ripped into us about not getting everything done. I tried to explain how busy we'd been, but she interrupted me and said, if everyone would just do their jobs, it'd be fine. Oh, you think so? Very well, boss. Your wish is my command. The next insanely busy day, I bustled around doing my job, just my job. All the things my less competent coworker was struggling with, I let her figure out, and when our boss got in, she was furious. I calmly went about my work while she dumbfoundedly pitched in and tried to do damage control. She was pitching quietly to her daughter about the state of everything and why I didn't do more when her daughter, bless her, said, Mom, OP actually did all of her tasks. It's coworker who struggled today, and my boss eventually conceded that perhaps more training was in order. And our next story. Sure, don't listen to the guys who do this job for a living. Years ago, I used to work as a medical biller for a surgery center. The administrator who ran the place knew that I worked construction with my father as well on my off times, doing remodeling and building houses. As such, she commissioned us to do some work for her at her personal home. It was small projects really, installing a new garbage disposal, installing a new mailbox, installing a projector in the ceiling, easy stuff. Now, before I get into the main part of this story, I must tell you, she was very stingy with money. We had an autoclave that needed servicing at work, and she refused to pay for the worker's travel time of 2 hours for a 30-minute job. She refused to pay a lot of the medical equipment bills until she was threatened with collection notices or refusal to send any future items. She even told us not to waste patient bands who were no-shows and instead place another patient sticker over the old ones, which could be a HIPAA violation, but she didn't care. This is important to know. One day, she came to me and asked if we could take a look at her flooring in her exercise room. She'd said the water heater had busted, and as a result from sitting too long, her flooring was swollen from being waterlogged. So my dad and I went over there to assess the situation and determined that we could do the job for a total of $400 plus material. We weren't out to strike it rich, but really to help the community by providing quality service at a low rate. She was happy with the price and told us she would pick out the new wood she wanted laid down. We told her that she would need about 100 slats for the repair we were going to do, as well as new plywood for the base. She seemed okay with that. She went to Los Angeles one weekend and came back with material that she wanted to use for the flooring. Only she had about 30 of the requested 100 to do the job properly. On top of that, she did not think that she needed to get a new sheet of plywood. We informed her that the old plywood was moldy, swollen, and would only cause problems down the road. She eventually agreed to purchase the plywood replacement, but she was not going to purchase more wooden slats. Instead, she demanded that we use most of what was already there. Yes, the swollen pieces, but to tear up the slats in the little alcove that was not hit with water damage and place the damaged ones there. We did everything we could to convince her this was a bad idea. We told her that wood doesn't magically shrink when it dries out. We told her that joining the swollen pieces with non-swollen pieces would be near impossible. We told her that the moisture would invite more trouble down the road and provide for an uneven floor setting. She was having none of it. She knew better and did not want to spend more than she already had. So we went to work. We tore up the old pieces, saved the best ones, and started laying down the new pieces first. Then we tore up the pieces in the alcove and matched them with the new pieces too. Per her instructions, we placed the least damaged slats in the alcove, doing everything we could to make it look presentable. Lo and behold, even though it was all uneven, it raised in spots, it had gaps in spots, it didn't quite fit right, but that's what she wanted done, and that's what she was going to get. Despite our best efforts, we were absolutely shocked when she said that the flooring looked horrible, despite us telling her that it would look horrible with the damaged slats. Okay, no, we really weren't shocked at all. She demanded that we tear up the floor again and fix it the right way. We told her, sure, but you'll have to pay us another $400, plus get the other slats that we requested. She got livid, said we were horrible people, and refused to continue on. The next day, I quit the job after she came in and badmouthed my dad in front of my coworkers, but I heard from my coworkers that she had to hire someone else to do the job, and it cost her $1,200 for the labor alone, plus another $400 in wooden slats. All because she was so certain she knew better than the guys who have been doing the work for years. And our last story. The police suggested the revenge. This happened to a friend of mine years ago, and me as well, but he did the revenge. I lived in a small village by the sea. Most people had a small boat with an outboard motor. People were not poor, but far from rich. Someone began stealing gas from the boats on multiple occasions. Lots of people got livid. They lost their gas, of course, but even worse was that several ran out of gas far from shore, potentially very dangerous. A friend of mine went to the local police and got to talk to the chief of police and got the following advice. Fill a can with gas, mix it with sugar, and put the can in your boat. My friend got a bit concerned and asked if this was illegal and could get him in trouble. It's not illegal to mix sugar and gas. It's your gas. If someone steals it, it's no problem of yours. If the thief files a complaint, you can rest assured that I will follow up regarding all the thefts. And so he did. A nice brand new can filled to the brim with gas and lots of sugar. The can was gone the day after. Fast forward a week, a local engine repair shop got a pretty new 120 horsepower engine in for repair. As said, a small village, so after checking up on the engine, it was easy for the mechanic to put two and two together. The mechanic told the customer that the engine was beyond repair, a lie I guess, and that the customer should contact the police because this was sabotage. The police got no complaint. Of course, the story went viral in the small community. The thief was until then a well-respected person. The moving van showed up a few months later. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.